A poor man was married to a beautiful woman. The man and his wife never argued. They loved each other very much and were always happy together. But they had a rich and handsome neighbor. One day the rich man saw the poor man's wife and fell in love with her. I want to marry her, he thought. Every day while the husband was working in the fields, the rich man visited the poor man's house. You are a beautiful woman, he told her. But your clothes are old. Why doesn't your husband buy you nice new clothes? If he really loved you, he would buy you the most beautiful clothes. Divorce him and marry me. I will buy you the best dresses in the land. Then you will be the most beautiful woman in Ethiopia. At first, the woman ignored him, but the rich man came every day repeating the same words. Eventually, she started to think, maybe my neighbor is right. Why doesn't my husband buy me nice clothes? Maybe he doesn't love me. That night, she spoke to her husband. Look at me, husband. My clothes are old and ugly. I want new ones. Buy me a new dress. Her husband smiled. You don't need new clothes, he said. To me, you are the most beautiful woman in the world. She frowned. Don't you love me? She asked. If you love me, buy me a new dress. The husband loved his wife and wanted to make her happy. I don't have much money, he thought. I need to buy a new plow, but I want my wife to be happy. So the next day he went to the market and bought her a new dress. When he brought it home, she was delighted. Thank you, my dear husband, she cried. Now I know you love me. When the rich man visited again, she proudly showed him her dress. See, she said, my husband loves me. He bought me this beautiful dress. The rich man shook his head. A good husband doesn't just buy clothes, he said. He gives his wife gold. Where is your gold necklace, your rings? Why hasn't your husband given you any? He opened a small box, revealing shiny gold jewelry. Look at this, he said. Divorce your husband and marry me, and I will give you all of this. The woman refused. Go away, she said. I love my husband, and he loves me. We are happy. But the rich man kept coming. Every day he showed her the gold. Slowly, her thoughts changed. Maybe the rich man is right, she wondered. Why hasn't my husband bought me gold? Maybe he doesn't love me enough. That evening, she didn't cook dinner. Her husband returned home, tired and hungry. There's no dinner for you tonight, she said. You don't love me. What? He cried. But my darling, I love you more than anything. Then why don't you buy me gold jewelry? She asked. When a man truly loves his wife, he gives her gold necklaces and rings. The husband looked worried. I already spent money on new clothes, he thought. Where can I find more for gold? I'll ask my brother for help. I must buy gold for my wife. I want her to be happy. The next day he visited his brother. Brother, please lend me some money, he said. I will work in your field to repay you. His brother agreed. But you must work hard, he warned. There are many stones in my field. You must remove them all. The husband accepted the deal. With the money, he went to the market and bought gold jewelry for his wife. When he gave it to her, she was overjoyed. She put on the necklace and rings. Look at me, she said. Aren't I beautiful? You are very beautiful, her husband said. If you are happy, then I am happy too. She hugged him. Thank you, my dear husband, she said. Now I truly know that you love me. The next morning before sunrise, the husband left early to work in his brother's field. I must work hard, he thought. I must start early and finish late. I must repay my brother. Meanwhile, his wife was happy at home. I'll make a delicious dinner for my husband tonight, she thought. He works hard for me. He loves me. Just then, she heard a voice outside. Hello, are you there? She stepped out and saw the rich man. Ah, it's you, she said. Listen, neighbor, she continued. You were wrong about my husband. Yesterday he bought me this beautiful gold jewelry. He loves me very much, and I love him. I will never leave him. I will never marry you. The rich man was worried. Her husband loves her too much, he thought. If I want her, I must be clever. Then he said, Your husband gave you clothes and jewelry, but I can give you something greater. What do you mean? The woman asked. Can your husband make miracles? The rich man asked. Miracles? No, of course not, she said. Only God can make miracles. No man can do that. But I can, the rich man said, because I love you. Love makes miracles. If your husband truly loved you, he would make miracles for you. If you love me, I will create miracles just for you. Prove it, the woman said. Make a miracle for me now. I can't, the rich man replied. You must first promise to love me. You must leave your husband and be mine. Then I will perform wonderful miracles for you. The woman said nothing, and the rich man left. That night her husband returned home exhausted and hungry. His wife brought him water to wash and served him a delicious meal. My poor husband, she thought. He works so hard for me. He is so tired and hungry. The rich man is a fool. How can my husband make miracles? It's impossible. But the next day, and the next, and the next, the rich man returned. Did your husband make a miracle for you yesterday? He asked. Leave him and love me, he said, and I will perform miracles for you every day. Slowly the woman began to believe him. One day when her husband came home, she looked sad. Wife, my dear wife, what's wrong? He asked. Are you sick? No, she said, I'm sad because you don't love me. What? Her husband cried. But you know that I love you. I bought you new clothes. I bought you gold jewelry. You are the most precious person in the world to me. But you don't make miracles for me, she said. The poor husband was shocked. Miracles? Of course I can't make miracles, he said. Why do you want a miracle? Who told you about this? Our neighbor visited me today, the woman said. He told me, love makes miracles. If a man truly loves a woman, he will perform miracles for her. The husband felt troubled. That wicked man is trying to take my wife, he thought. First she wanted new clothes, then she wanted gold jewelry, and now she wants a miracle. What can I do? If I can't make a miracle, maybe she will leave me and marry him. The next morning he walked slowly to his brother's field. I must pray, he thought. Only God can help me now. Looking up at the sky, he prayed, "O Lord, please help me perform a miracle. I love my wife and I don't want to lose her. Don't let the rich man take her from me." He spent the morning moving stones in his brother's field. At midday he sat under a tree to rest. To his surprise, a man was already sitting there. "Who are you?" the poor man asked. "I am a wizard," the man replied, "and I have a gift for you. Look, here are 2 sticks. They can create miracles." "Miracles?" the poor man said excitedly. "What kind of miracles?" "If you touch someone with the first stick," the wizard explained, "they will turn into a donkey." The poor man thought about the rich neighbor and smiled. "A donkey? That's perfect," he said. "And what happens if I touch them with the second stick?" "They will turn back into a human," the wizard answered. The poor man took the sticks and jumped up with joy. "Thank you, my friend," he said. "I prayed to God, and He sent you to help me. Now I can keep my wife and teach my enemy a lesson." He ran home, calling out, "Wife, come quickly. I'm going to perform a miracle." His wife came outside, curious. "A miracle?" she asked. "What kind of miracle?" "Watch," said her husband. He touched her with the first stick. At once she turned into a donkey. She lifted her head and tried to speak, but all she could say was, "Hee-haw, hee-haw." Her husband then touched her with the second stick. Immediately she became a woman again. "Husband, that was amazing," she said. "It's a real miracle. How did you do it?" "I prayed to God," her husband said, "and He answered me. Now, my dear wife, it's time to punish my enemy." "Your enemy?" she asked. "Who do you mean?" "You know who," he said, staring at her. He was no longer smiling. "Our rich neighbor. He comes to our house while I'm working in the fields. He fills your head with bad ideas. Ask your husband for new clothes, he says. Ask him for gold jewelry. Ask him for a miracle. Tell me, am I right? Did he tell you all these things?" The woman said nothing. "And did you listen to him?" her husband continued. She looked down, ashamed. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It's true, he told me those things. He wanted me to leave you and marry him, and I listened to him." Her husband sighed. "And do you still want to leave me and marry him?" he asked. She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. "No, dear husband," she said. "I want to stay with you forever. I will never listen to him again." "Then take this stick," her husband said, "and touch the rich man with it." He handed her the first stick, but he hid the second one in the roof. The next day he went to work as usual. Soon the rich man arrived at the house. "Well," he asked, "can your husband perform miracles now?" "Yes," she said with a smile. Then she touched him with the first stick. In an instant, the rich man turned into a donkey. Now, she said, you can go to the fields and help my dear husband. She led the donkey outside and took him to her husband, who was busy moving stones in the field. Ah, her husband said, a donkey. Now I can finish my work much faster. From that day on, the donkey carried heavy loads. It moved stones out of the fields, it carried sacks of teff to the market, and it brought flour and coffee home. Years passed and the donkey continued working hard. The poor man was not so poor anymore. Thanks to the donkey's help, he was becoming richer. One day the poor man looked at the donkey. It was old and tired. It stood still, its head hanging low. The poor man felt sorry for it. He went into his house and brought out the second stick. Then he touched the donkey with it. In an instant the rich man stood before him again, but he was no longer young and handsome. He was old, his back was bent, and he looked exhausted. You tried to take my wife from me, the poor man said. That was wrong. Now go home, and never look at another man's wife again. The rich man turned and walked away. He never came back, and the poor man and his wife lived happily together for many years.